Hey everybody, thanks for stopping back in for our ongoing coverage with Hurricane Zeta. It's been a couple of hours. We had some issues earlier tonight, so we reset all of our computers. We apologize we weren't on earlier between now and a couple of hours ago. We wanted to get on, but we have been updating social media. Our Aaron J. Jack has been super busy tracking Zeta as it continues to move across parts of Mississippi and Alabama tonight. I'm telling you guys, tomorrow morning this is going to be a huge story in terms of what the damage will be, the storm surge, but also the widespread power outages that are ongoing across the country. In fact, why don't we start off with those power outages? We have a graphic that we just made. This is updated information from the last 10 minutes, and you can see that there are several hundreds of thousands of people without power, but already across multi-states. So Louisiana, over 500,000 people, 550,000 without power at this hour. And then in Mississippi, we're looking at 210,000 people, give or take. Alabama, about 133,000. And Florida in the extreme panhandle dealing with about 12,000, just under 13,000 people without power thanks to Zeta. But of course, that's only going to get worse as we head into tonight. I think this will be millions of people that will have direct impacts from Zeta as we head into tomorrow. I've been talking about that, kind of beating that drum for the last several days, because I've been so concerned in terms of what we're going to be getting from this hurricane, and it still is a hurricane. So let me take the MyRadar app and we'll take a look at it. It still has hurricane category 1 force winds and still packing a punch, you guys. The storm came in near Cocodrie, Louisiana, and I apologize earlier tonight. I mispronounced the city that it came in at. I do apologize. I took French for many years, but I did not get the pronunciation correctly, but Cocodrie, Louisiana, and of course now moving through parts of southern Mississippi and southern Alabama. I've got the wind layers toggled on as well. You can still see the center of circulation. I'm going to kind of put it in the dead center of the iPad here. Give it a second to reload, and we're still talking about winds in the neighborhood of 60 to 70 miles an hour, and even a sustained wind close to 80. Let me switch this over to, I think I already am on high def, but for some reason it has been a little temperamental tonight. The radar has. There it goes. So maybe it just didn't want me to zoom in. So I'll just kind of keep it toggled out there. But you can certainly see the center of circulation, and then those yellows and those greens indicating the really high cloud tops. And now we're also dealing with a flash flooding event. So let me take you over to WSI Matt Highland, our production coordinator, driving the bus tonight, keeping him here late hours. Didn't even get a dinner break. So he's been working super hard. But I wanted to show you the flash flooding risk that is going on right now too, because besides all these other features that we've got to talk about, weather hazards across the country, we also have to talk about flash flooding. So here's a look at the rain totals from just tonight. So of course this is going to get cumulative, but there is a flash flooding event ongoing in Alabama. I'm going to read it to you in just a second, but let me take a look at some of these estimates. 9 inches there just on the state line of Mississippi and Louisiana, and some of these numbers again 5 to 6 inches, but some of those higher pockets have been in around 6 to 8 inches. In fact, I'm going to read to you from the National Weather Service in Mobile, Alabama, where there's an ongoing flash flood risk. Let me find it here. Oh goodness, my page refreshed and now I had it earmarked, but I can tell you that what it said was there was 6 to 8 inches of rain along the state border of Mississippi and Alabama. And again, an ongoing flooding, a flash flooding risk in that area of those two states, because there is significant rain coming down. Okay, I found it. I'm sorry. I finally got it. So this was just within the last 20 minutes, flash flooding indicating 2 areas that have received between 6 and 8 inches of rain in the past 3 to 4 hours. So this is from Gretna to Buckatuna and to the state line from Leakesville, and then a little further to the south from Rickton to Janus and into Ramsey Springs. So those are again in Mississippi and Alabama, crossing those 2 states. And there's also very heavy rain expected to move into and already in Clark and Wilcox counties. So again, flash flooding ongoing. That is super dangerous if you're trying to get out and about. We've seen video, all kinds of video on social media, including our very own Aaron J. Jack. So let me show you some of his video from earlier today. He rode the storm out in Bay St. Louis in Mississippi. But the first video clip that we're going to show you is from some of these incredible winds that were in the northern eye wall. And actually, this is in Waveland, Mississippi, where they have had multiple overturned trucks. This is on Interstate 10. And as you know, if you've driven in that area of the country, there's several high points to the interstate there. So, of course, I'm not exactly sure why these trucks were out in this weather. They certainly shouldn't be. High-profile vehicles. It's a no-no to be on a bridge or an overpass. But nonetheless, these guys and gals were out probably trying to get their cargo and their loads to where they needed to go. But several overturned trucks that Aaron has told us about along Interstate 10, and I would imagine that's probably shut down many parts of Interstate 10 as well. And then our next video is also out of Waveland. I believe that Interstate video is just north. But take a look at this. This was the eye wall that I was talking about, just the northern fringe of the eye wall that was moving through Mississippi. Aaron said that it was really packed a punch there. Aaron's been tracking hurricanes and tornadoes for years and maybe even decades. I'm not exactly sure how long he's been tracking, but a long time. And he said that this hurricane really had, some really, really intense winds to it, especially on the backside. He said it felt more like the backside of a supercell. So, that tells you something, that the winds were really whipping pretty dramatically, because not only were the thunderstorms rotating around 110 miles an hour, but there was also this incredible forward momentum of around 20 miles an hour as well. So, you couple those two events there, and you're talking about some serious energy that's ripping across parts of Texas, ripping apart through parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So let me take it back over to WSI, Matt, and we'll take a look at the live sweeping radars. And beneath the rain there is the tropical storm warnings in the areas shaded in blue, the areas shaded in red, of course, are the hurricane warnings. And again, I'm going to zoom in just a bit. We'll take a look at some of those heavier rain rates. This is exactly where the flash flooding event is going on, by the way, the area that I'm going to toggle on some of these rain rates. So there's been estimates. So this one is popping up at about 1.33 inches an hour. So I imagine most of these cells are going to be in that rate. But over cumulatively, there's been about 6 inches of rain in this cluster of storms with these feeder bands. And that's what's produced this flooding risk. Down a little further south, I toggled on an area that was pretty light. But the big concern over these next several hours is going to be the ongoing flash flooding risk. Still too dangerous for crews to get out and about. If people are looking for help, and from their local officials, still can't get out in this stuff. It's still the winds anytime they're above 35 miles an hour, 39 miles an hour. You can't leave this. The emergency crews can't come out and help. So there's still that ongoing risk of these winds. Another look at the radar here, again, just kind of showing another vantage point. I wanted to kind of point out those feeder bands. So these guys are the ones that pack heavy rain, but also pack some serious wind. So these like tentacles that you see, these little jellyfish tentacles, for lack of a better analogy, really are very heavy in nature, the tropical rain bands. And then, of course, most of our concentrated rough wind is right in here. This is on the outer peripheral fringes of the northeastern eye wall of Zeta. But these tropical bands also carry powerful rotating storms, and all of these are rotating over parts of southern Mississippi and into southern Alabama, and even the extreme western parts of the Florida Panhandle. As I mentioned, there's already about 12 to 13,000 people without power there. So now we're in the velocity mode. I'm going to zoom in up in here. Let me check real quick and see if there's any tornado warnings. I don't think there is. I looked before we came on. And I don't see any, but let me move this over. I'm in the National Weather Service's chat that they provide to the media and to emergency responders, and it's a great resource when we're tracking weather. No, I don't see any current tornado warnings, but there were some earlier today for sure, and we have had plenty of hurricane damage reported in and around southeastern Louisiana where Zeta came in. So our software there indicating some weak rotation right here. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong tool. Hang on. I think I grabbed the right one. Nope, I still don't have it. Try again. There we go. So right in here is some weak rotation, but I don't see anything, that's not unusual, again, with a landfalling tropical cyclone, because the actual cyclone itself, the hurricane itself, is rotating. So the radar sometimes has a hard time differentiating between the actual larger circulation from the hurricane versus a smaller circulation from an actual rotating thunderstorm that's reaching the ground. So I don't see anything here off the top of my head that's, in quick view here, that's got me concerned. But let's take a quick little look-see around, and we'll see if we see any couplets here. I haven't seen any. I've got 5 of the radars on, 5 sites here in the south, and it's going to switch radar. So this is Mobile's. And then I think over as we scoot back towards the west, I have New Orleans radar on, but of course they, thankfully, by the way, are done with the worst of the weather with Zeta. As I mentioned earlier tonight, this is going to be such a fast-moving event, so you'll get the worst of this weather for about 2 to 3 hours, and as quickly as it comes in, it's going to leave. However, the bigger concern down across the southern part of the northern Gulf Coast here is the storm surge. We know for sure that Biloxi got at least a storm surge, and Mobile Bay in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 feet, and that's just what I heard within the last hour or last couple of hours. So we'll get a confirmation from the weather services. They'll go out and assess the debris field. They'll take a look at the sides of buildings. They take a look at how much of the debris or the pollutants that come in with the Gulf of Mexico, leaves, trash, and they look at that against the walls usually, and sometimes it's buildings themselves, and they can determine how high the storm surge was. So we'll find out where that was. I'm going to show you the storm surge graphic, which was anticipated to be anywhere from 7 to 11 feet. So here's a look at those storm reports that I was talking about, multiple hurricane reports. So when you get those, that's some type of damage that was directly caused by a hurricane. It can be winds, it can be the storm surge, it can be a multitude of things, but look at that, there's several hundred there, and then the ones up to the north are actually from the actual cold front that's driving Zeta, but the numbers will continue to come in as we get through tonight. And as we look at the loop, you can see the center of circulation, the closed low there, the eye wall, or the eye rather, of Zeta as it moved onshore, again at Cocodrie, Louisiana, around 4 p.m. Central, which was 5 Eastern, and then becoming elongated now, less organized, but certainly still holding together some of those intense winds with in that small core that are holding at a Category 1. So as I pull this up a bit, again, the concern is what happens as folks go to bed tonight and into tomorrow. And then it's going to go up into parts of northern Georgia, western South Carolina, and into western North Carolina, and then into Virginia on after that. So this is going to be a multi-state event, a quick event. So we'll be done talking about Zeta as soon as maybe even 24 to 30 hours from now, but not for the next several hours. It's going to be a long night for a lot of folks. So these are the current wind gusts, by the way, in this area. So these are not sustained winds, these are gusts. Mobile reporting a gust of 71 miles per hour within this last hour. Pascagoula, Pensacola, Florida, 55. And then Pascagoula, before we came on, within this last hour, it was around 65. So I guess the data didn't come in this hour, but it was around 65 last hour. 29 over in Gulfport, 39 in Hattiesburg, and 23 up in Birmingham. So as we head through tonight, of course, the wind will shift. Here's a product that is a model that is using the European 9-kilometer, pretty good depiction, does a pretty good job of estimating winds on a landfalling hurricane. So as you can see, I've got the clock starting it right now at 11:45 Eastern time. So watch the little box over here. So the estimation for the Biloxi winds, 59, and I think this model does a pretty good job. We just saw the winds were in that neighborhood. So Mobile around 45, and then as I advance the clock and we get into Montgomery and over into Atlanta, winds there around 20, 30 miles an hour, give or take. And then we start to see the numbers go up to around 40 to 50 as we get into tomorrow. Greenville, South Carolina tomorrow at lunchtime would be in the range of 30, 35 miles an hour. And then back over to Charleston and Raleigh, the same thing. So let me back this back up because I actually had it on some pause points, but we'll take one more look here. So again, we'll start at right now, 11:45. And then as we, so Biloxi and Mobile, again, winds around 60 miles an hour in Biloxi, around 45 miles an hour in Mobile. And then headed into the next several hours, Montgomery through the overnight around 37, 40 miles an hour. Atlanta around 15, but those will pick up, of course, later tonight. Athens, Georgia, also expected to pick up through the early morning hours of tomorrow in the neighborhood of 15 to 20, certainly doable. But look at that, Atlanta is around 40 at 6 a.m. And then Athens around 16 up into Greenville, South Carolina after that in the neighborhood of 12 to 15. Some of those modeling suggests we could get as high as 20. Certainly not a big deal for sure, but I think because this might be a little bit underdone and these are going to be sustained winds, I do think we're going to get into that threshold of tropical storm strength because there is currently ongoing tropical storm warnings in these states, in those areas that I showed you. So I picked cities that were in the tropical storm warning to show you the forecast, and there's definitely going to be some tropical storm force winds there. So this is just some guidance for you, but I definitely do think we're going to get at that threshold of 39 miles an hour or greater as we head through the next 12 to 18 hours. In terms of power outages, we talked about that. There's close to 1 million people already without power as we head through the overnight and into tomorrow. This too, I think, is a little underdone, but the highest risk is in that swath where, of course, the center of Zeta will cross, and that does include parts of central Alabama, south central Alabama, near Dothan, south of Birmingham, luckily. But I do think, Birmingham's not going to escape Zeta. I think you're going to get some weather as well near the Atlanta area and then up into the Carolinas after that. So that's the greatest risk for power outages. But I think by the time all is said and done, this will be multiple millions of people that will be without power from Zeta. There's a look at the infrared. Still have some impressive thunderstorms on the west side and even on the east side of the hurricane, still maintaining its intensity, at least its category 1 intensity. We, of course, expect that to weaken. But as I talked about earlier tonight, because this system is moving so quickly, it's impacting more people at a higher wind rate than they may have originally anticipated. So officially, the winds are at 80 miles an hour in that small core in the northeastern side, and it is racing. Look at that, northeast at 31 miles an hour. And usually, when those systems are moving that quickly, they start to transition from a true tropical a hurricane to an extratropical or a hybrid or a gale mixed hybrid, and we are going to see Zeta transition into a hybrid system tomorrow as it kind of gets absorbed and pushed along by this cold front. But until then, it's still going to be maintaining some of those winds across big areas, multiple states, and that's why I think the power outages are going to be such a problem. I think we're going to see a lot of tree damage here in this area of the country as well when we see tomorrow morning in the what happened and what's ongoing. And then, luckily we'll be done with this by tomorrow night, but it is going to have quite a trail, and it's about 45 miles northeast of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, by the way, and headed into, of course, Alabama as we head into tonight. I have been very pleased to see that there has not been a huge influx of tornado warnings. You were still under a tornado watch in this area of the country until 12 a.m. local time. So that's, and actually, Matt, what time is it? Because we got to make sure we bug out of here. Okay, I got 10 minutes. Our computers switch over at midnight and it will mess up all of our data. So I'm going to have to take this live stream down in a couple minutes, but we'll be done by then anyways. But anyways, there's the path that takes it up through the mid-Atlantic, Delmarva, and even just off the coast of the Northeast. So the winds are going to be howling in Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, all the big cities up in the Northeast are going to get a little bit of Zeta too before it pushes offshore. Here's a look at the current watches and warnings. So the hurricane warnings are now just isolated to a small part of, or at least the southern part of Mississippi. I shouldn't say small, but the southern part of Mississippi. And then we have tropical storm warnings that go all the way up to Virginia. And we have a flash flood watch in those areas shaded in the lighter green. The darker green is a flash flood warning. As I mentioned, there is that ongoing flash flood warning on the coast, the state line there of Mississippi and over into Alabama. So 6 to 8 inches of rain has fallen in just a course of about 3 hours. And we still have that risk for tornadoes for the few minutes left we have of Wednesday. It's almost Thursday, and about 2 million people at a slight risk and about 2 million at a marginal risk. I did check the SPC for tomorrow. They currently don't have it up for there being a slight risk, so we'll see if they change that. Maybe not. I think Zeta might just be moving too quickly, but the storm surge warning has still been an issue, and these were the updated numbers just before landfall, which again, the surge comes in before landfall, but it also lingers after landfall. So the concern was in that southeastern part of Louisiana, 4 to 7 feet near Grand Isle, and then over near Triumph, 5 to 7 foot, and then the biggest surge near Dolphin Island along Mississippi's coast there, almost across the entire state, 7 to 11 feet. So we have not, we have not heard reports yet that will verify the storm surge, and we'll get a confirmation of that in the coming days. As I mentioned, the Weather Service sends crews down to these areas that are hardest hit, and they'll verify the storm surge. They hit it right on with Laura. They estimated an 18-foot storm surge, and a lot of people didn't think that was the case, but it was. I think it was 18.2 or in that neighborhood. So the Weather Service verified it about 5 days later. So we'll find out what the surge was here. I do think along the immediate coastal areas it was pretty intense. I know for sure, I've seen video out of Mobile Bay that was 6 feet. So I know that was absolutely spot on, 4 to 6 feet there, and then 6 to 9 on the east side, and then 2 to 4 as you get into the Florida Panhandle, and even the Big Bend, 1 to 3. So certainly have seen some of those tidal rises. So here is the wind radii, and this is a product that the National Weather Service, so they plot out 5 days, right? You get a 5-day forecast, and they plot out each day. So this is a compilation of the wind radii on days 1 through day 5, but I only run this for the first 3 days because really after days 4 and 5 the product, you don't usually maintain those winds for past 2 to 3 days after landfall. So I only run this out for about 3 days. But at any rate, so this is a product that extrapolates the forecast by the coordinates. They plot them out, the lat longitudes, and then based on the data that they've gotten on the wind radius of the hurricane, this is how they come up with the forecast. So you can see it's elliptical. It's certainly not a big donut. A lot of those winds are kind of locked down towards the south and the east, but there's still a relatively well-defined center of winds around 80 miles an hour in that red core, and we know that this is verified as well because we know that the Hurricane Center, as of this hour, has winds at 80 miles an hour, and I know that there's been gusts in this area around 80 miles an hour as well. So it's definitely verified. The product that the Hurricane Center puts out, they do such a fantastic job. So many hats they have to wear, and so many forecasts that they have to put out. But let me back that up because I know that moves really quickly. That's how fast Zeta is going to move. So I'm going to let it play out, and then I'll scrub it back, and we'll play it a little slower manually. So here is, again, from about 25 minutes ago, 11:30. And then as we head in time, you can see the core wind field of hurricane winds shrinking, but we still keep that sustained wind of tropical strength up to 73 miles an hour, still moving just over on the south side of Birmingham, headed over into the extreme northwestern part of Georgia, and still Atlanta is going to get those winds as well through the really early morning hours tomorrow morning. Those winds will be in the neighborhood of 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, probably, maybe even gusting a little higher than that. They're on the south side of Zeta, so that's the little bit of the weaker side, but still even up into the Virginias, into the Carolinas, we still hold some of those winds around tropical storm strength. And then as we head into the mid-morning and lunch hour, we see how quickly it moves off the coast of the Carolinas through the Delmarva, but look at that, up into Delaware, New Jersey, south of Manhattan, and then just south of the New England, Nantucket area. So again, you're not going to get sustained winds near tropical storm strength, but I bet you get some gusts in that neighborhood as we head into tomorrow. So that will be a windy day for sure up in the Northeast. Thank you. So across the eastern part of the country, here's a look at the estimated rain totals between now and the next 3 days. So remember, we've already seen several inches. The estimate from the Hurricane Center was 5 to 8 cumulatively for the areas that were immediately impacted by the Hurricane Center. And then now we're looking at 1 to 2 inches cumulatively between now and tomorrow. But again, primarily because Zeta is moving so quickly, so it won't have an opportunity to dump a bunch of rain. But that said, we already have an ongoing flash flooding event. Here's a look at the storm future cast as we head through midnight and beyond. And again, this product does a really good, this is, I believe, the RPM. That's an in-house model that we get from the software company that we use, showing as it kind of gets picked up and kind of merges with that cold front, doesn't become some super cold front or some super hurricane. I told you guys that earlier. Don't think we're talking about some big super Sandy or something similar. That's not what this is. But it is getting guided and lofted quickly towards the east because of this cold front and because of the jet stream, which is a major player in this as well, and all of those ingredients coming together to help kick Zeta very quickly out of the U.S., and that could not happen soon enough. One more time, we'll take a look at the live radar. Let me take a look at some of the questions and see if I can find any of them. If you've got any, Matt, you can shout them out to me, and we'll see if we can answer something real quickly. Dan Anderson on Facebook is in Hattiesburg. Hope you're doing well, Dan. I know that Hattiesburg is getting a fair amount of the weather, has seen a fair amount of the weather. And we got Anthony over in Tampa. Tampa, thankfully, is out of the crosshairs of Zeta. Goodness, a lot of people have seen it, but not Western Tampa, not Western Florida, the Florida Panhandle for sure, but not along the main interior of the state. Let's see. I can't read those. So the winds at 8 a.m. for Atlanta. So we just showed that wind product. So I think in the neighborhood, I think the worst winds for Atlanta will be 4, 5, 6 in the morning. By 8 a.m. it's going to be north of you. But in the neighborhood, if you're talking about your morning commute, probably around 30, 35 miles an hour is definitely, I think, doable. Depends on how well it tracks and how fast it tracks. It's moving at 31 miles an hour right now. It is ripping across the country. So, I think that it's going to be before the commute. But, you're going to have wind and rain, and you're under a tropical storm warning, so that's definitely going to slow a lot of folks down that are trying to get out and about. Let's see. Hey, Sandy's back in the house. Sandy on YouTube, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Matt, I don't see, let's see. Just a bunch of folks saying hi. I can see it if I pop that up. By the way, I can see the live chat on YouTube. I can't see it up in our software that we use to broadcast to you guys, because the box is about this big and it's small. It's small. But anyway, you guys, I think that's going to do it, because we have to jump off here before midnight. As I mentioned, the clocks reset, the computer resets, and it changes all my maps to the next day. So we want to make sure that we get off of this live stream cleanly, and I think we almost have, because we had a rough earlier live stream tonight. So thank you again for stopping in. Meteorologist Mike Linden will be back in the house tomorrow morning with Damian McFarland. They will be extending our live coverage because we are concerned about the flooding risk. We're concerned about the wind that's still going to be ongoing. And I think, again, the big signature, one of the big headlines from Zeta will be the widespread power outages that will be ongoing tomorrow. So we're going to track that for you. Mike will be here throughout the morning and the early afternoon. And then my partner in crime, Matt Highland, will be here with me tomorrow afternoon. I forgot your name, Matt. I'm sorry. I'm tired. So at any rate, you guys have yourselves a great night. I hope you are staying safe and you've got some good snacks to keep you occupied as you ride out Zeta, our 11th named storm of the 2020 hurricane season. Let's hope it's the last one, you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Good night.